Now, I had no plans on doing a video today. In case you missed the community posting over on YouTube or my posts over at Telegram, I and Combat Cameraman are working on a major project for the channel right now. We're working on the script. We're trying to tweak it and that stuff to make it, perfect. We're planning out how to film it. We're trying to find locations. I'm waiting on training aids to show up. And then when the weather's good and everything's set, we're going to go through, do that video, and it will get posted online. Combat Cameraman says that this video, the way we're working on it right now, is probably going to be one of the best ones we'll ever do because of how much effort's going to be going into this one. We will see. So that's been our primary focus. This morning, I was made aware of a few things that I realized I need to do a video about. I need to put out a warning on. Now, before we get into the stuff I got this morning, I do need to point out that I have been extra tough on the Gen Z kids, the doomers. And the reason I have is because the vast majority of them that I have come across at my workplace, in businesses, just going to stores and that stuff, anywhere I've come across them, they're drones, plain and simple. They have not been taught how to think for themselves. And I've noticed this even with younger family members. It's the same thing, they're essentially drones. I have met a few of that generation that can think for themselves, and I think those kids will go pretty far. But the vast majority of that generation, they are completely incapable of thinking for themselves. They have been bred to be not just sheep, because a sheep can at least tell when it's in danger. They've been bred to be mindless drones, plain and simple, robots. To be given commands, told what to do, go out, and they will do it without even a first thought, let alone a second thought, because that's what they've been bred for. They've been bred for a hive mind. Now, I know some people are going to say, well, that's only the ones on the left. The ones on the right think for themselves. No, they don't. Okay, yes, you have two camps right now. You have the Democrat Socialists and you have the National Socialists. But guess what? Both of them are still pushing socialism. They're still pushing totalitarianism. So, in the end, it's the same result. The stripping of freedoms. And both the drones in those two camps, and that's really what they are, they can't think for themselves. They can't recognize that they're being set up. Now, everyone is focusing on the Democrat socialist drones, the communists, that are currently doing protests and riots on universities and college campuses. Now, in case you missed those clips, you do have reporters coming in, independent reporters, and they question these kids, well, what are you protesting? And they don't know. Well, why are you protesting? And we don't know. We were just told we're supposed to be here and we're supposed to protest. And these protests are being led by professional protesters, people that literally go from state to state, school to school, business to business, to deliberately stir up problems. A lot of these same ones, these professional protesters, from what I'm reading in news reports, a lot of these same people were also caught doing the same thing in 2020 during the Summer of Love. And now they're over on the college campuses. And at the college campuses, as part of the big rallies and stuff that they have for their protests, you're seeing a just out and out communist indoctrination where you have actual communists standing up there saying that this is part of the revolution to overthrow America. This is the revolution to destroy capitalism, so on and so forth. And these kids, just clap, yay, this is what we need. They act like robots. They don't act like human beings. Now, there is talk from Mark Dice, Alex Jones, David Knight, and others that these kids on the college campuses, they're the ones that are going to be used to cause a Summer of Love 2.0 here in about a month, when the colleges and the high schools are letting out for the summer. I can see that. Mark Dice is warning about that they're just looking for any excuse to have a figurehead as the justification for the media. Now, this could be another person of color, a black person, being killed by a cop after they committed a crime, like we've seen with George Floyd. Or this could be a situation of, and this is one that Mark Dice has been, Alex Jones has been warning about. Mark Dice has been warning about the, rehash George Floyd. Alex Jones has been warning about, he's hearing that they're trying to get cops to overreact at a college campus, and we end up with a repeat of Kent State, the Kent State massacre. If you do not know what that is, look it up. And then that is what will be used as justification to get even more of these brain-dead young drones out to protest and burn cities and so forth again. Now, this morning, when I logged into Telegram, I had a message from a mole who monitors the Nazi wannabe chat rooms and websites. And the message was, they sent me a video. And they said that they're seeing this type of video, this material being pushed really hard right now inside these chat rooms and the Nazi channels. And here's a couple screenshots of one of them. The very first opening scene, and it's less than a second, you see here the shadow of a swastika here with a Nazi death head over the top of it. Now, inside the video itself, what that particular video shows you, it shows you a power transformer station, a electrical relay station. Remember those being shot at a couple years ago? Well, now they're doing videos like this in the Nazi chat rooms, and they're pointing out the critical parts of the substations, where they should be hit, the name of the part and so forth. And you can kind of see over here in the background on it, you have here a woman giving a Nazi salute. And it's like this all through the video. There's these images, it shows you, this is a critical component, you need to hit this. And then in the background, you have the Nazi iconography. So what's going on inside the National Socialist chat rooms and websites? They are being stoked up to do attacks on infrastructure, and that they need to do it to, fight back against the communists, to get back at, fill in the blank minority group that particular person doesn't like. So, take that into consideration. What we're seeing is the Gen Z kids, these young kids, these teens, these 20-somethings, early 20-somethings, are being stoked up on both sides. And when you think about it, they're both being stoked up for the same thing, to cause chaos. Now, both groups, whether they will admit it or not, those of us that are older, we know better because we've been through it, we've seen a thing or two, as Ron says. We know that both groups are controlled by the feds. And a lot of times by the exact same people are running both sides. A setup operation. So we have the feds right now through their little proxies, are stoking up the leftists to start to burn things down to cause a communist revolution. Their proxies in the Nazi side are stoking things up for attacks on the infrastructure to get back at the communists. The end result of both is chaos. Now, why would they want chaos? Well, it'd be pretty obvious if you think about it. If the country goes into chaos, then they would have a reason to maybe cancel the elections, because you can't guarantee the safety of the voters. You can't guarantee the safeties of mail-in ballots because, someone could attack the drop boxes, with Molotov cocktails. So you know what? It's just that much safer that we hold off on the election until the security situation has calmed down, and then we'll hold the election. You can kind of see how this might end up playing out on that. And some of us have warned about this in the past. There are a few of us who outright believe there will not be an election this year, and we've been saying this for over a year. That chaos would be a great catalyst or a great excuse for that to happen, for them to hold off on the election. Now, there's something else that's going on. Early this morning, I came across multiple news stories also, when I was looking around, that Congress supposedly banned the Bible late last night. Now, I did some more looking into this, and news reports are now coming out, okay? Late last night, the House of Representatives, in a vote of 324 and 90 against, passed something called the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act. Now, according to this act, they're using definitions as laid out by the Anti-Defamation League and the Holocaust Museum for what is anti-Semitism. Now, some members of Congress, some of them in that 90 that voted against, before they voted on this bill, they did some checks. Find out, what is the definition of anti-Semitism cited by both these two organizations? And one thing that they noticed, a commonality in both of them, is they have in the doctrine that they put out for recognizing anti-Semitism, if a person says that Jews killed Jesus, that is anti-Semitic hate. So, there you go. The very basic tenet of Christianity, that Jesus gave himself up to the Pharisees and Roman guards and Jewish guards. He was seen by the Sanhedrin. They tried him. They could not find him in violation of the law. So then they turned, the Jewish Pharisees turned Jesus over to Pontius Pilate. Pontius Pilate could find him not guilty of any law, but he knew the crowds were demanding something happen to Jesus. Now, when Pilate had Jesus and Barabbas in front of the crowds, he asked the crowds, who should he free? Because according to tradition in Judea at the time, the Roman governor could free one prisoner at the request of the crowds. They all called for Barabbas, a murderer. The guy had a rap sheet longer than George Floyd. He was released. So then he asked, what should I do to Jesus? And they all yelled, crucify him, crucify him. He washed his hands of the situation, and he ordered that Jesus be crucified. So the basic tenets of Christianity, according to the Anti-Defamation League and the Holocaust Museum, that Jews killed Jesus, Jews called for Jesus' death, told Pilate to kill him, that is anti-Semitic. So according to the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act, which has passed the House of Representatives, that basic tenet of Christianity is anti-Semitic and will be a felony, a violation of federal law. Now, this act has not yet gone to the Senate as of the time of me making this video. And if it passes the Senate, which it probably will, it then has to go to Mr. Potato Head for signing to become law. Now, some of you are probably saying that, well, they can't interpret it this way because it's a violation of the First Amendment, freedom of religion. Yes, it clearly is a violation of the First Amendment, but it should be pointed out that if you haven't noticed, for the last 3 years now, the Constitution has not existed in this country. Repeatedly, the Supreme Court has ruled again and again that the acts of Department of Justice, of the White House, are unconstitutional. But guess what? They still keep doing it anyway, because they say the Supreme Court has become right-wing extremists, so they're not bound by the findings of the Supreme Court. So they don't care if something is unconstitutional. And I want to point out, who is going to be the people that will enforce any penalties from the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act? Who are going to be the people from the federal government or from any government that's going to enforce this? If we're going off what we're seeing right now, the current composition of the government, it's going to be Marxists that hate Christianity. So how do you think they're going to interpret that law? Do you think they're going to say, well, you know, it's a violation of the First Amendment if I go after Christians for saying this, you know, they have religious freedoms? Or are they going to look at it as, I hate Christians so much, this is the excuse I've been looking for to get back at them? How do you think that is going to be interpreted by those enforcers? Now, let's tie this in with our summer of love that's about to happen. We have communists that are going to be doing protests in the cities. We're going to have attacks on infrastructure that are going to be done by Nazi wannabes. Do you really think that the feds that are quarterbacking this whole thing, they're controlling both sides, making it happen, you know, what they want to occur, they're assigning the groups from each side to go out and make it happen to get that big picture, you know, that ultimate end goal? Do you think the feds are going to go after those democratic socialists or those not national socialists that are doing this stuff, that are causing the chaos? For proof on that, you only need to go back to 2020 and look what happened then. Over $2 billion worth of damage. How many of them have gone to prison now? Damn few. And the ones that are being sent to jail, sent to prison, are getting extremely lenient sentences. So we have these chaoses going on. But then, oh wow, we have this Anti-Semitism Awareness Act, which has caused now Christian extremism. These radical Christians are attacking government because they think the government has banned Christianity, which that's how it will be enforced, but the news won't say that. It only takes one kid who's unhinged, one person who's had enough, who does an attack, and then during questioning or a manifesto that'll just happen to be found, or postings online on social media about it, that they're doing their attack, or an attack should happen, because of Christianity being banned. So who do you think of those three groups, which will be cited as the reason for the chaos then? Do you think it's going to be the Democratic Socialists? Do you think it's going to be the National Socialists? Or do you think it's going to be that one Christian who did something on video or videotapes, or their posts that will be cited as the reason for the chaos? I don't like how this all fits together like this. It's incredibly nefarious, but this is exactly how our enemy thinks. There's always multiple reasons why they do something. So that if they fail at one goal for when they did something, they still have 2 or 3 or 10 others. 10 other results from that act that's going to get them to where they want. They don't care if 1 or 2 of those results failed. They still got all the others. They're still getting what they want. And the end result out of all of this, whether it's chaos caused by the Democratic Socialists, the chaos caused by the National Socialists, it's still going to bring about totalitarianism. It's still going to bring about our enslavement. Because whatever group would win, they're the ones that are going to be in the right, and they're the ones that are always going to want to stay in power forever, because it's always the victors that write the history books. I want you guys to think about that. Now, we'll see if more information, well, I guarantee there's going to be more information coming out about this Anti-Semitism Awareness Act. But we need to be aware for sure of what we're going to see on the ground here. We'll see infrastructure attacks, we'll see the riots, the protests, and all that. Now, when this stuff happens, okay, I'll say right now, we must get the truth out there. We must point out who is it that is doing this stuff. Who are the ones protesting? Who are the ones attacking the infrastructure? And we need to have the proof. We need to have the videos and that stuff to back it up. Because the average citizen is asleep. They're sheep. But the ones doing the attacks, they're drones. They have no mental processing capabilities to understand how they're being set up. And we need to point out, when this stuff starts happening, who are the ones doing it? We need to counter that, hey, it's not the Christians that are doing it, like the media will tell us, like the White House will tell us. We need to point out when it's a National Socialist attack, or when it's a Democrat socialist attack. We need to point it out, and we need to have the proof for it. Now, is it going to stop a possible conflict from happening? No. I guarantee the enemy already has courses of actions on what to do to counter whatever we do, to still get the result that they want. So you still need to prepare for the possible worst case scenario. The worst case scenario, you're completely blocked off from food, you're completely blocked off from water, there is no health care, it is complete chaos, there is no rule of law, it is pure anarchy. You need to be prepared for that. And if you are a patriot, if you're a military veteran especially, you need to be prepared to defend yourself. And when the time is right, to organize to fight back, to secure those areas, to remove that chaos on our own from an area. And when we do that, we must establish or reestablish constitutional freedoms in those areas. It cannot become a totalitarian government in those areas. It cannot become a martial law situation where we're just trading us to be in charge and not the enemy. You must restore law and order. You must restore constitutional freedoms, constitutional rights, our God-given rights in the areas that we stop the chaos in. And we must help people out. It's okay if they don't believe the same as us. They're the enemy when they start attacking you. You guys should remember this. We got taught this stuff before. Remember the training before you would go overseas that you're probably going to go through areas where the people aren't going to like you? They're going to hate you just for being American? But you're not allowed to open fire or attack those people unless they attack you first? Well, those same rules of engagement really will apply here in the United States, won't it? You can't just go through like they're pushing us for in movies like Studio A24's Civil War movie, which just came out. Don't let them push you into the attitude of, we need to round this group up and put them on the side of the ditch just because. Your fight is against the ones that are causing the chaos. Your fight is against that person who's taking up arms, not against that old lady who hates you just because, you know, you're a soldier and she was a peace activist back in the 1960s. Those stupid rules of engagement when we went overseas, unfortunately, we're probably about to see the true meaning of those rules of engagement here soon. And it should mean more here in the streets of the U.S. than it did in the streets of Baghdad or Mosul. Keep your head on a swivel, people. This is gearing up to be a rather spicy year, as we're seeing so far. And God only knows if we're going to be enjoying the Christmas season and Thanksgiving season with our loved ones, or if we're going to be hiding in an abandoned warehouse in the rundown part of town with a rifle next to us, or if we're going to be celebrating the holidays underneath a tarp in the middle of the woods. I much rather would be enjoying the holidays at home, warm, fat, and happy, downing large amounts of good food for a day and then regretting it the next day as we have to go out and maintain physical fitness and try to work off those pounds again. Now, for all my engineer brothers and the Patriot militia movements, always remember essayons.